Hey guys, one of my clients this week asked me a question. He said, how can I win the fight against time? And it got me thinking about something important that I want to share with you. We all have a need for time management. If you're trying to be more productive, obviously, it makes sense to think about time management. But what I want to share with you today is just a few insights that come from the realization that you can't actually practice time management. There is no fight against time. It's really, time management is a misnomer because time passes the same for you as it does for someone else. Whether you try to manage it or not, it's going to just tick by. Your same 24 hours are going to pass regardless of whether you try to fight it or anything of that sort, right? So really, time management is a misnomer. What we're really talking about is prioritization. So at the root of my client's question, what was he really getting at? What he meant is, I'm so busy, there's so much at stake. How can I make sure that I'm using my time to best accomplish the goals that I care about most? And so there are a few secrets that I just want to share with you now about how to practice the art of prioritization. And there's different levels that we can look at this question at. Today, we're going to zoom in at the level of assuming you've already decided, like, this is my business model, this is the goal that I'm working on now, because there are levels above that, right? It's in terms of choosing a business model that is more time friendly to the business owner. And of course, there's different layers that we can go into, just strategy for generating business models that have higher capacity for accelerating fast. But what I'm going to share with you now is just the keys, just the very simple 2 keys for managing your time that creates potentially an infinite upside to what you can accomplish. Let's dive into that. So if it's not about a time management battle, since we can't battle time, then what is it really? Time management is really a misnomer. It's about prioritization, right? And so it brings us to the question, are there any tricks to prioritizing well so that you're using your time the way you should be using it to accomplish your goals? And really, the core of it for entrepreneurs, for business owners, is replacing yourself. It's replacing yourself because no matter what you're trying to do, if you just get better at choosing which thing to prioritize for your own 24 hours or your own 6-hour or 12-hour or 16-hour workday, then that only takes you so far. And you're eventually, the business will grow again to a point where you're stuck until you replace yourself again in some aspects of what you're doing. And because I've walked with entrepreneurs from the very base level where it's just them running a business up to having 20 or 30 team members, and I've done this multiple times with different business owners across different kinds of businesses, I've had the unique vantage point of watching to see what works and how this happens. It's just inevitable. At some point, no matter how many team members you have, you're going to once again find yourself stuck in a place where there's too much for you to do. And when that happens, I want you to use that as a trigger to remind yourself to stop rushing and trying to accomplish more or panicking about it, but instead use that as your trigger to remind yourself to slow down and think about how you need to replace yourself again. And so replacing yourself, let's talk about that. Those are the 2 things, right? Just replacing yourself and reducing distractions. Those are the 2 things you should be prioritizing. So let's talk about replacing yourself. This is something I borrowed from Rory Vaden, who talks very clearly on this subject. He says that this is the order you should do it in, and I agree with him. After spending time thinking about this, practicing this with entrepreneurs, if there's things you want to look at everything that's on your plate, both progress tasks, things you want to get to, and your maintenance tasks, things that are just the recurring, keep the lights on for your business tasks you've already committed to. Both of those categories, you want to first ask, can I just delete some of this stuff? Like, is this even necessary? Is this old, things we've brought in that we no longer need? And then if you've deleted everything you can and you still have this long list, then you look for things you can automate. And often that means delegating to somebody who can automate it for you better than you could do it, because it may take you longer to build an automation. And if it can't be automated, well, that's where only then do you try to delegate it. So you find somebody that you can bring in to take that off of your plate. And then what's left, you try to do some strategic procrastination. In other words, procrastinating for success. So you say, what doesn't actually need to get done in this time frame where I'm feeling really overwhelmed? So if you're feeling overwhelmed this week or this month, whatever that time frame is, ask yourself, with a simple phone call, could I extend the due date for completing the business taxes? Or Could I ask that person to let me come and do some public speaking at their event next quarter instead of this quarter? So procrastinate what you can, and also sometimes procrastinating leads to the realization that you don't even need to do something. You later discover that if you had never done it, it wouldn't have made any difference. And then only what's left, really focus, right? So that's the orders: delete, automate, delegate, procrastinate, and then focus. And so when you're replacing yourself, that's what you should be looking at repeatedly, because ultimately what we want you to do is I want you to be a consultant to your own business. You should be at the high level looking at your business, and you should try to remove yourself from any of the places where you are in the process of producing revenue, so that you can stay at that high level of networking, building new business plans, finding and hiring the right kinds of people. And preferably even at some point, you may find that you need to train your team how to find and hire people so that you don't have to even be the bottleneck for that. So reducing distractions. You essentially, if you think of it at the simplest level, we're talking about creating a buffer between you and notifications, or you and the long to-do list of little things that are quick tasks that you need to get done for your maintenance tasks. What we're doing, why are we trying to reduce distractions? It's so that you can keep focused on essentially deep work that you use to replace yourself. So your micro challenge this week, well, let me go back to that thought for just a second. So you reduce distractions so that you can create space. And what do you use that space for? It comes all the way back to where we started. The top thing you should be prioritizing is replacing yourself. Anytime you start feeling overwhelmed, instead of working faster and harder, slow down, replace yourself. Otherwise, you'll just get stuck again as soon as you just do the thing quicker, because it's quicker to do it myself than to delegate it. Ultimately, if you're being farsighted, you need to think about replacing yourself. So you create space by reducing distractions to focus on ways that you can replace yourself. So your micro challenge this week, it's a simple one. I just want you to, for just a moment, think about, where can I put in my calendar 30 minutes to dedicate to just slowing down to think about what I can delete, automate, delegate, procrastinate, and then leave only just a few things to focus on. That's the key to time management for busy entrepreneurs. It's really just those simple things: reduce distractions so that you can focus more on replacing yourself, and rinse and repeat. You do that infinitely. And what happens is, think about this with me for just a moment. What would happen to you if you exclusively focused on continuously removing yourself from the business operations, continuously removing your own time from being the thing that holds back your business, compared to a different reality, an alternate universe where you just keep doing the work faster or better yourself? Ultimately, there's no comparison, right? In the long run, the version where you've replaced yourself is going to do better. And so that has to do with time horizons, right? So it's one of those easier said than done. And the most common complaint or objection to this concept or this model for becoming more productive through just focusing on replacing yourself is, well, we have to have this done by the end of this month, or the cash flow stops rolling in and then I can't pay the people that I brought in to replace myself. And so sometimes you have to work really hard to create the buffer space to then replace yourself in some aspects of your business. And that's the trick, right? And so we have to keep time horizons in mind. If you have to do certain things yourself just to get through to the end of the month, so that you can have enough cash flow to then hire people for the next month, then that's okay. We just want to be honest with ourselves about how much time can we pull away from just keeping the business afloat in order to grow the business. And growing the business means figuring out what to delegate. So your micro challenge, just set aside 30 minutes sometime this week to think about, where could I replace myself? And think more deeply about the idea of bringing in experts instead of trying to find people who know nothing and train them up into the level of capacity you need them to be to take something off your plate. Sometimes it's better to lose some money by paying a higher fee to somebody who already knows how to do something than it is to try to bring someone in and spend more time trying to train them. And other times it makes sense to bring in an expert to train someone who is less expensive and is just starting up, and ask them to just take an hour or two to train somebody for you. Sometimes an expert can train somebody better than you could train them yourself on a given subject matter. To make this easier for you, to identify the low-hanging fruit, the 80-20 thing that you should delegate first, I have a worksheet. It's just a spreadsheet that helps you do a calculation of, well, what's the easiest thing to delegate, which often has to do with, are there already experts who know how to do that? And I don't even have to train them. For example, your taxes. There's CPAs who can come in and do it better than you, right? Or maybe it's computer programming or building some new AI automation. Find someone who already knows how to do it better than you. So that would get a high score on the, okay, you list all the things that you could delegate or that you are currently doing, and then you give it a score from 1 to 10 of how easy would it be to delegate that. Some, it's like, man, I'm the only person in the world who knows how to do that. That's going to get a low score, right? Because it's hard to delegate. Other things, it's like, wow, there's people sitting on Upwork right now that I could hire who can do that better than me. That's easier to delegate, so it might get a higher score. And then the next column would be, well, how much time in minutes does this save me if I was to delegate this? And of course, when we multiply those two, how easy is it to delegate times how many minutes will it save you? It gives it a score, and then we can sort based on the highest score and say, those are the things you should do, you should start delegating first. Now that second column about how many minutes does it save you, you want to take into consideration whether that's a repetitive task. So if you say, oh, it's easier just to do it myself, it's a 20-minute task, it would take me 45 minutes to train someone else how to do this. So it wouldn't actually save you time unless you were doing that 20-minute task every day for this week and the next week and the week after, in which case 20 minutes times 5 days, there already, that saves you time compared to training somebody for 45 minutes. So you want to take that into consideration when you're thinking about how many minutes does it save you. So that's why I've structured the worksheet to ask you per month, how many minutes does it save you? And so if you just use that worksheet, it'll show you these are the low-hanging fruit opportunities to delegate, to get things off of your plate so that you can continuously build your organization's capacity to produce value. And ultimately, that's how you produce more value through your business. That's how you shift from the mindset of trying to manage time to how can we create more, produce more, accomplish more, given the time that we have. See you next time.